believe we are now live here, folks. Today we're going to be working on this Tyco Midnight Special locomotive. I believe this was sent in a long time ago by David Z to G scale, and in any case, it unfortunately has some problems. I tested it, and it doesn't seem to run for one reason or another, so it's going to need some work. Ontario Railfan 12, welcome. Canadian Pacific CN Model Railroading, Railfanning, hello. I got a whole bunch of people joining in. Anyway, I'll show you all what this thing is doing right now, and then we'll crack it open and see if we can fix the problem. I believe it's got a seized drive, but I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, let's head over to the track. Well, folks, in today's live stream, yeah, that's it. Another live repair, eh? Yeah, going to be doing some more repair videos in the not-so-distant future, but tonight I just decided, why not do a repair on an old Tyco? I've already done so many Tyco videos, I don't know. I want to make videos about things that are a little bit more interesting than these old Tycos. You know, not that these are dull, it's just I've worked on so many of them. I don't want things to get too repetitive. So, I'll give this thing some power. Headlight, humming motor, so the whole system's getting power. It's not an electrical issue, it's not shorted or anything like that, but it's clearly seized, so in all likelihood it's due to dry lubricant, but it could also be a problem with the gearbox, who really knows, but we're gonna find out pretty fast. Well, at least I hope so. What's your favorite train to run? That's a good question. I hope it's a runner. Yeah, me too. It's promising. The worst thing you can encounter is a motor which is getting power, but it's, you know, it's not turning, it's burning up or something like that. If you have a shorted armature, then that's a big problem. But seized usually is not too big an issue, provided somebody hasn't tried to force it to run. And this whole drive everything looks really clean on this model, so I'm just guessing it's been sitting for a really long time, and all the lubricants that this thing left the factory with in the 70s have long dried out. Yeah, you can already see the oil. Let's re-angle our camera a little bit here. Did anyone win the giveaway? No, I need to get on doing that, doing the draw for it, but I'm still planning on doing that. I'll probably announce it in the next video. Been watching your videos for a while, and you've been doing a great job. I grew up with my family's train shop, and have run and repaired lots of ones like those about 45 years now. Wow. A nice collection, many spare parts for older trains. Who knows, the possibilities for trains are also interesting. That's true. Yeah, this doesn't seem to really want to come off. Usually if you just kind of squeeze this, it causes the plastic to sort of bow, and then you can just pop it off. These old Tycos can be a bit stubborn. They were not made perfectly, so just because something works on one doesn't mean it will work on the other. And, well, unfortunately, taking this off, I kind of yanked all the soldering joints off, so that's all going to need to be redone, but whatever, that's no big deal. Our bigger concern at the moment is trying to get this whole drive unseized, which is not looking fantastic at the moment. You should play the song Midnight Special. I don't think I heard that one. SMT's ASMR channel is ASMT. Broke brittle wire is going to need to be resoldered anyway. Yeah, exactly. Wow, those screws are mighty tight. Hello from Newfoundland. Welcome. Alright, well this all looks fine. So I'm guessing the problem must just be with the gears. That one seems okay. Yeah, it's all locked up. Well, it's not impossible to get this to all turn. Let's try lifting off this gear and see if that will make any difference. Yeah, that is not great. Love old locomotives like these. They're a lot of fun to work on. Maybe put some oil. Well, optimally what you want to do is clean out all the old lubricants before putting new ones in. Not something I do 100% of the time, depending on how dirty. I mean, if things look clean, they're usually fine. You don't have to, do too much work. It's when they're all greasy and stuff like that, you really want to pay attention. Yeah, it's not that bad. Sometimes these things are packed with dust and hair and all sorts of things, but this one has just got its factory lubricants. Nothing too bad. That did not take much to remove. Anyway, we're going to try to remove this gear. Have to be very, very careful because the little pivots, these break off so easily, it's not even funny. I like Athearn Blue Box. That's a good manufacturer. Yeah, these old Tycos, these are fun to work on, but they're not fantastic drives, if I'm honest. Where's the magnetic bowl? Somewhere on my workbench. I'll probably pull it out later. At this face, later brown box Tyco is owned by Consolidated Foods. Sometimes you'll find boxcars with Sara Lee, all because of that. I never knew that. That's quite interesting. Maybe that's why so many grocery store chains sold train sets back in the day. Any suggestions for somebody getting into model trains? Yeah, make the hobby about what you want, not what others necessarily suggest. It's not that I don't think getting advice from other people is good. There's a ton of people in the hobby who are very, very knowledgeable, and I suggest, do some research and everything. But the only problem I have is that there are some people in the hobby who, they may have good intentions, but they're very focused on, creating a realistic model railroad, and they'll tell you have to pick a place and a time, and you want steam or diesel, etc., etc., etc. And, if you really like the historical aspect, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, it's not for everyone. And if it's not for you, I just ignore that stuff and just dive right into it. Don't hold yourself back. If you want to build something that's not too realistic, that's totally okay. So that's one of my major pieces of advice for getting into the hobby. What brand of track are you using? Some of it's Pico. The majority of it's just Atlas Snap Track, though, built on cork road bed. If you're going to go that route, I highly recommend cork over foam, too, because foam road bed, in my experience, is nothing but trouble. It's an unpopular opinion by some, but the old-fashioned cork road bed is pretty solid. People claim it doesn't dampen noise as well, but when you add the ballast on, it doesn't make a difference because you glue your ballast down, so it's totally fine. How much did all your trains cost? I do not have a clue how much I've dumped into this layout. I'm not sure if I could somehow see the number if I'd smile or cry. So I'm just going to try to get all this old grease off the gears and everything else, and then that should help. How long do you think Bachmann Easy Track would last for? If you're just leaving it on a tabletop or something, you're not moving it around a lot, you could probably get a few years out of it. Probably 10, I don't know. But the big thing is that if you're taking it apart and putting it back together a lot, you're going to wear out the rail joiners really quick. And I've had a lot of experiences too where the plastic roadbed itself is prone to cracking. So yeah, if you use Bachmann Easy Track, I wouldn't change it up too often because I don't find it's very durable. I just joined this, so I don't know what you're doing. I've disassembled part of the drive. We're just kind of cleaning all the parts up right now, and then we're going to open up the motor, service that, and hopefully this thing will run. In the beginning when this was tested, it was seized. I suspect all this old lubricant is why. Do you have any recommended brands? It depends on what you're looking for. Most modern brands, for the types of products they have, are actually really good. You know, they've kind of refined everything, so reliability issues are not as common as they once were. Unfortunately, everything's very expensive. So if you want to buy used for locomotives, I'd recommend old Atlas engines or Athearn Blue Box engines. Those are pretty good. There are some other brands, but I find that those are the most budget-friendly, reliable ones. Because you can buy these old Tycos really cheap, but if you're a beginner and you're just looking for some trains that will be reliable, I probably would avoid the Tycos. They tend to have a lot of problems. Use lighter fluid to clean gunked-up grease. Yeah, that's an option. It's like the rubbing alcohol because it evaporates really quickly. I feel like Bachmann trains that have steam need to go full speed to make the steam. Yeah, well, I mean, those little steam units, maybe it's different for modern DCC engines, but on the old DC engines, you know, you have a coil in there which gets hot and, you know, is burning the fluid. So, yeah, if you run it fast, it's giving that coil more power, and it is going to generate the smoke a lot quicker. The 060. I had one of those. I still do. Fortunately, those tend to have a lot of problems, but they're really fun while they work. All these parts seem to be cleaning up pretty well, so I'm quite optimistic about it. Controller Packers, welcome. I like British trains. I spilled steam fluid everywhere once. Yeah, you have to be pretty careful loading your engines up, especially since that fluid is not necessarily plastic safe. I mean, I suppose it would depend on the brand, but the kind I was using, it seemed to damage the plastic. I think we've almost got all of the grease off. Do you think using Tyco track is good? All right. Tyco track is brass, and brass track is not the greatest out there. Nickel silver is definitely the best. You know, if you need some budget track just to run your trains, brass track is fine, but you need to make sure you're cleaning it with like a track braid or even some really light sandpaper, just because the brass oxidizes, and when it does, it's not going to be very conductive. Replace all the rail joiners with modern ones too, because using old rail joiners, which have already been used, they tend to cause problems. But, you know, they'll get the job done. It's better having some kind of crummy track rather than no track. It's a good way to save money. I've used brass track on my new layout, actually, because it's just really cheap, so it is an option. What do you use for cleaning wheels? Some times you can get away with just using rubbing alcohol. There are special track cleaners. You can use those on them. If you're dealing with really, really bad wheels, though, you know, rub one of these track cleaning devices on it, or a fiberglass pencil, something like that. Really, really light sandpaper, like maybe 2000 grit. The higher the number, the better. It might take longer, but you don't want to use anything too abrasive. Anyway, we're gonna throw some oil in this thing. Put a little bit here and some around the edges, and hopefully it will sink in. This gear's still not turning quite as well as I was hoping for. As always, these old Tycos tend to be very fickle things, so. Does Marx still make trains? I don't think Marx is in business anymore. Correct me if I'm wrong, though. I have O-scale marks. Yeah, I think O-scale is primarily what they made, like their tin-plated stuff. I have a little bit. Their HO stuff is okay. It's far from the worst I've seen, that's for sure. All right, well, this all seems to be turning decently. I wouldn't call it good, but it's certainly a large improvement over what we found it in. So things are moving the right direction at the moment. If we can just keep it that way, this locomotive might have a shot of riding the rails once again. Marx went out of business in 1980. Yeah, I'm not surprised. I feel like if they were still around, you'd hear about it. I'm still really curious, though, about this new manufacturer which I've discovered out of Brazil. So I worked on that Brazilian locomotive. It turns out the manufacturer that made that is actually still in business, still making budget locomotives with 3-pole motors, which I was very surprised to see. So trying to see if I can import some locomotives from them, because they actually have some really interesting stuff. Look at the oil getting distributed. That all seems pretty good. So I guess now we'll tackle opening up the motor. This is going to be interesting because it's going to reveal a lot about its condition. But it's usually a necessary step on these old Tycos, so we'll take our chances on it. Ever think about getting some ON30 stuff? I think it would be interesting to see a reaction to the scale. Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, it would look a little bit weird running some ON30 on an HO scale layout, but the nice thing is that I already have the track and the controller and everything else. Well, if it is an SMT. Wow, those are very stuck. Okay, then. I'm gonna see if I can find the attachment for this screwdriver. I might be able to just put a little more torque using that. See if this will get the job done. Piece of cake. Do you like Thomas and Friends? I haven't watched it in a very long time, but yeah, when I was a kid, I loved that show. I was watching the old one, though, which is where they were actually apparently using real models to film it, which is pretty nice, versus now it's animated. What's the cheapest engine you can buy new? It's probably a Bachmann product, although I did find a Walters one, which I think was cheaper than the Bachmann's. I did a review on it. You can find them on Amazon pretty cheap. Wow. I am very surprised. Everything in here looks very good. Huh. Springs look to be in good condition. The commutator is relatively clean. Like, it's not spotless, but in comparison to some of the other motors I've had to look at, like, this is just nothing. I'll just clean that up with our fiberglass pencil here. That all looks good. I just need to try to get this whole thing back together, and then we'll test the motor out. Hopefully it will run. Then we just need to get the whole drive back together, and we will be in business. What's your preferred track brand? I've always just used the Atlas. It's not necessarily the best, but whatever it is, if you have the means, try to buy nickel silver, even if you have to buy it used, because it will make a difference performance-wise. The only thing I would never advise buying used is switches. Those, I find in most cases, are trouble. Crap. This is always the most challenging part. What's your favorite modern locomotive? For the Dash 9. Hey SMT, give me your best day. If this doesn't work, I might try, yeah, I don't think this is going to work this time. Sometimes, you know, you can kind of just squeeze everything in, but in this case, I don't think it's going to work. So I'm going to take all these parts, put them in a parts dish. We're going to properly remove the plates and see if we can fix all this. Of all the manufacturers, I think Tyco's got to have the worst design to get inside these motors, because the problem is, you know, people solder on these plates. That's how they came from the factory, and then it melts the plastic, so trying to remove these is a nightmare. Like, I don't even know if these clips are going to work again. So I guess I could bend them and just kind of get the brushes in that way. It's not fantastic to do things like that, but it might be that or throw away the part. I don't know. Yeah. That's the way I'm going about this. So I'll just install that. I showed you a trick on how to do that with a piece of cardboard or an index card. I've done that before. I just don't find it always works that well. I was actually using a little piece of firm plastic. It can work, but trying to hold all the parts at the same time is no small task, at least for me. See, this is the only problem, is that trying to bend these pieces of metal back into place. Sirens and Railroads of Oklahoma. What is up, my boy Harrison? Well, just trying to get these parts back in here. I'll keep bending this metal until... Yeah, that looks okay. It's good enough. What do I do when a gear in my engine's cracked? That's not a good situation. Put a degreaser, even, like, you know, use some soapy water and then rinse it. And you could try to use crazy glue to get it back together. I've heard people have been successful in that, but in a lot of cases you have to just replace the gear. Certain manufacturers, like the 70s era lifelike locomotives, you can find similar aftermarket gears on eBay and just put those in it. Many other brands, you're usually going to have to just find a donor locomotive. It's a 1980s Bachmann. Oh yeah, that's a very common problem for those 80s Bachmanns. Yeah, you can just try gluing the gear back together, but the good news is on the 80s Bachmann engines, parts are very, very common, because Bachmann engines in that time used all the same parts, so you can find one diesel from the 80s. In most cases, you can just take parts off of one and put them in another, so that's an advantage. But yeah, almost all of them have that problem. They decided to take nylon gears, these very, very thin nylon gears, and then they fit them around a piece of metal, and they did so through some sort of a thermal strategy. So they caused the nylon to expand around the axle, and then what they would do is, you know, they'd let it cool off and it would shrink around it. So there's pressure there, and that's why they all crack. Not a great design. Midwest Model Railroad has some replacement gears for Bachmann. That's good to know. I didn't know anybody was making them. Yes, indeed. Do you have any fan mail? Yes, I've got a few boxes at the moment, which I just picked up a couple days ago. I was happy to see they arrived too, because there have been a lot of people complaining that, I don't know, my P.O. box isn't working. The people at post office, for whatever reason, you know, this P.O. box, which has had the same address for several years, now post people don't seem to recognize it, so I don't really know what's going on with that, but despite being sent to a non-existent address, they still showed up, so I was happy to see that. Do you have any letters? Yeah, a couple of those did arrive. So I was going to plug in my soldering iron, but what I really should be doing right now is taking some wires from the controller and just see if the motor even works. What's the gauge of wire you would recommend for a locomotive? It's not super important. I mean, yeah, if you pick something way too thin, it's probably not going to be great, but just, you know, whatever is in it, try to replace the wire with something that looks similar. These things are not super sensitive, so if you put a slightly thinner or thicker gauge, it's probably not going to make a difference. Oh yeah, that runs fine. I'm not going to oil this bearing though, because that's going to be nothing but trouble, I promise you. Alright, wow. Yeah, metal plate is still a little higher than I'd like. That's more like it. Wait a minute. Yeah, those gears are not turning, so the pivot gear is unfortunately slipping. Another very common problem with these old Tyco engines. So I guess we'll have to probably put some CA on that or something. I don't know. How do you make your mountains? They're all just made out of cardboard and deli paper. You just take little strips of cardboard. You know, you take a cardboard box from the recycling, you cut it into thin strips, you hot glue it all together, you put the deli paper over top with some watered down glue, and there you go, mountains for practically nothing. So I'm kind of regretting having put that oil on that bearing because it's probably going to make trying to get this to stick a little bit harder. Do you have a P42? Yeah, I've got a Amtrak one and a VIA one. What do you think of the Athearn Canadian Pacific Heritage units? I think they're awesome. I like them. Yeah, it's ridiculously loose. Alright, I'm just going to go look for the bottle of CA I have, and then we'll try to get some of that on there, and then I think while that's drying, we'll focus on cleaning up the wheels, maybe servicing the back truck, and then things should be good. All right. Now, Gorilla Glue. Yeah, it's Gorilla Glue. It seems to work pretty well, although I've used a dollar store branded super glue, and I find it works just as well. Oh, that's already looking like a million times better. ASMT is Athearn good. The old Athearn engines are solid. You don't have to worry much about buying those. I can't speak as much for modern Athearn locomotives because I don't own too many of them. But it's sort of hard to say because the technology's probably developed, but at the same time, if you add decoders and things like that to a locomotive, you are adding opportunity for things to go wrong. So I really wonder sometimes, are the new Athearn engines more reliable than their blue box counterparts? Many moons ago, in the 70s, when I was big into model railroading, I made mountains out of chicken wire and paper mache, flour, water, and paste. Unfortunately, I found out that mice love to eat it. Well, that's good to know. Yeah, I've usually avoided the paper. Well, it's kind of like a paper mache, but I usually just use watered down glue. And some of these mountains I built, 3 or 4 years ago, they're holding up fine, so hopefully they'll remain that way. Take off those horn hooks and get some real couplers. I think I'll just leave the horn hooks on this one. Yeah, if we're working with a higher end engine, like maybe a River Rossi, I might just do that sort of thing. But for these old Tycos, like even if you put fancy couplers on them, they're still Tyco engines, so probably just leave them as is. I will, however, service this rear truck though, because I'm sure that that could use some love. I thought Nerf Cat would take care of the mice. Yeah, you would think so. Nerf Cat's never been a terribly good mouser. Not because he's incapable, just because he's lazy. This looks fine. Looking great, SMT. Thank you. I have an Athearn Blue Box SW1500. It is really noisy. How do I fix it? Hopefully it's a gearbox problem. Just clean it out, put fresh oil in it. That will usually help to reduce noise. But unfortunately, the truth is the old blue boxes are just really loud. I think a lot of the noise has to do with their flywheels, because flywheels need to be held in on something very, very sturdy, and they have to be in perfect balance. Otherwise, they kind of act as a bit of a shake weight, and they cause the engine to vibrate, which is what creates all that sound. I guess one place you could also look is maybe to make sure that the motor mounts are doing their jobs, because in a lot of cases, they've kind of melted, and that could cause the motor to get loose, and that could definitely make some noise. But other than that, they're just noisy locomotives. Kind of take it or leave it. Most modern engines don't have sound problems like that, but back then I think things were just not quite as developed. Do you have a favorite YouTuber? Ooh. Can't really think of one off the top of my head, but there are a lot of channels I've been watching for years. I really like, for automotive, this guy named Vice Grip Garage. I'm sure a lot of you out there have watched him if you're into cars. He makes pretty entertaining content. Wonder which way these were in. I don't know. That's a good question. What do you guys, what channels do you guys like watching? Vice Grip is one of my favorites. Time for a cold snack. Yours. That's nice. David Z to G Scale, welcome. Titanic related. Ghost Town Living. Yeah, Luke Town, that's a good one. DB Tech. I like watching Nick's Crossings, Sparky, Human City, and of course SMT. he somehow strip the screw? What the heck? This doesn't seem quite right there, but I'm just going to keep on going. What kind of car are you driving now, Harrison? Last fall, I picked up a Oldsmobile, and I've been driving that around. Pretty fun car, one of those great big gas-guzzling V8s from the 70s. Trying to get that all reliable. Fortunately, I'm no mechanic, so it's been a bit of a learning curve, but I don't know. I want to learn more about working on engines and things like that, and I find the best way to learn something is just to kind of jump into it, you know, do research along the way. But if you actually have something to work on, it's something. How many HO scale trains do you have? I have no idea. Kato is the best N scale brand. Katos are pretty solid. Loved my Olds when I had her. Yeah, it's super. You know, it's not a very fast car. It's quite underpowered, really, for its size. But it's like riding on a sofa. Like, you go over a bump and you just kind of bounce over it. And the chairs, it's like having two couches. It's kind of funny, too, because, like, you know, an Oldsmobile back in the 70s, I don't think by most people would be considered, you know, the most exciting brand of car. But something from the 70s today, you know, you drive along and people just start smiling, you know, just seeing from the past. There have been so many times in like a parking lot where somebody's been like, oh, it's an Oldsmobile, you know, 98. My father had one of these and stuff. It's just the funniest thing, you know, it brings something out from the past and everyone just loves it. Why don't you take photos of the disassembly process? I've found it easier in the reassembly process. If you don't know what you're taking apart, that is a terrific idea. I do that all the time, but with the model trains, I've worked on so many of these Tyco power torques. I have a good idea of how they go together again. But yeah, that is a fantastic way if you're working on something that that's complicated. The good news is that with model trains I haven't worked on before, if I forget how something went back together, I can just refer to the videos I've taken of working on the train and then just use that. Yeah, I think that's probably the oldest mechanics trick in the book. Matt New Haven Railroad. I had a 1986 Cadillac. I miss it until repairs. Happy with my Volkswagen I have now. Hey SMT, do you know where Chelsea, Quebec is? I have family there. Yeah, my grandfather used to live there years ago. That's where the Wakefield train used to go by on its way up to Wakefield. Most Oldsmobiles in my area are Arlo's occasional Bravadas. Don't see many older ones as they've rusted a good bit. Yeah, I don't know. I was pretty lucky with the one I found. It was a 79, which came from way up from a town called Maniwaki. I bought it hours outside of Montreal, so it's kind of crazy. It came up from a place which was actually only about an hour and a half away from Gatineau originally. But yeah, for a Canadian car, it doesn't have very much rust on it, which is really remarkable because in most cases up here, the salt on the roads just chews away all the steel. Okay, I'm a little confused by the wiring here. Okay, I mixed up the wires. This one's for the light, so it should connect to here, and then that one, or no, I've got it mixed up. Yeah, this wire goes to here, and this one goes up here. Same here in New England. Salt causes all sorts of issues with the cars. Yeah, it's remarkable. You know, whenever I go down to Florida, you still see cars like from the late 90s driving around, and that's very, very rare up here because usually, you know, if you don't do something about the rust early on here, it just chews right through the car until, you know, maybe the motor and the transmission and everything else is running, but the frame's so rusted the vehicle is no longer roadworthy. That's what happened to my buddy. He had a 2005 Buick. Didn't have too many kilometers on it. I think it had 150,000, so theoretically it could still probably do another 150. But his mechanic just said, yeah, you better not even drive this out of here. Like, it's going to fall apart. You hit one good bump and the whole thing's just going to break. So he had to get rid of it. I think I'm going to solder this on top of here just so that I don't melt that clip more. Jack Railfan, how do I get mod? I don't know, just pick certain people. Okay, I just realized I made a mistake. I've soldered this on, but these clips are supposed to go up there, so... Oops. Can't tell you all how many times I've made that mistake before. Everyone's favorite massive soldering gun. Well, we'll see if it sticks around. Somebody sent me a proper soldering iron recently, and so I'll probably try that out, see if it's any better. I'm sure for working on circuit boards and stuff, it must make a big difference. Alrighty then. I guess we'll just get the wheels back into this thing and hopefully we'll all work. Recently I was given a soldering iron like that, very useful for quick projects. It heats up in 5 seconds, and it kicks out a ton of heat too. If you're working with really thick wires, it's a dream to work with. I understand it though, why a lot of people don't like soldering irons like that. I mean, they are very bulky and kind of tricky to move around. Joella Westerfelt. I currently drive a 96 Dodge Enterprise. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Anyway, 260,000 miles. Great car. Still lots to get up and go. Yeah. Seems like a lot of vehicles from the 90s, from a reliability standpoint, are very good. I mean, you still see tons of old Corollas and things like that on the road. Which time zone are you in? Eastern Standard Time. Hello from Northern Oregon. In the mid-1980s, I had a 1969 Beetle. We went out for lunch, and my boss decided to sit in the back seat and put his foot through the ground. It had apparently rusted a bit. I don't know if it was my grandmother or my grandmother's friend, but I heard a similar story where they bought a used car, and the original owner had tried to kind of like put some carpet over it or something, but after a day or two, the car sounded super loud and water was coming up through the carpet, so they peeled it back to see what was going on, and the great outdoors was right through the floor. It had just rusted right out. Anyway, I think they ended up actually getting their money back for the car, and they returned it, but yeah, crazy story. I guess before we go putting all this back together, just better make sure that it actually does run. So I'm just going to quickly plug in my controller here and I'll give her a test. I just don't want to put everything back together just to discover that it's still broken. Vehicles from the 90s were a lot simpler compared to vehicles made now. That's why 90s vehicles are more reliable. Ottawa Model Rail fan, welcome. Good car buying advice, look underneath the car. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I mean, if you're a mechanical person, that's great, but honestly, these days of buying a used car, I think the best thing to do is probably to see if you can take it to a mechanic and have them have a look. So we did with my sister. She was getting a truck, and we brought it to our local mechanic, and it was a really good choice because they found probably $700 worth of things that needed repairs. We were able to get the dealership to take care of all that at no cost, so not a bad idea. Now, speaking of mechanics, this model train one can't seem to fix this engine because it seems like this is still slipping. Cars from the 70s all the way. Yeah, the 60s, 70s, even into the 80s. I mean, the 90s cars, there were a few special ones, but you gotta love the 70s. Well, I'm running out of ideas to fix this whole pivot problem. Usually just putting a bit of CA fixes it, but it looks like it didn't do its job this time. Maybe try curling, making the axle slightly rough by clamping the main motor axle. You don't need much to get a good grip of the gear. That's a good idea. Maybe if I took some vice grips and we kind of smush the end, kind of mushroom the head. Well, not mushroom the head, but we kind of flatten it out. It will make it uneven. I haven't tried that before, but that seems like a good idea. So I'm going to go get some vice grips. We'll see if we can get the ends on there and, yeah, intentionally damage the top of the motor shaft. See if that does anything. Alrighty, folks, we're charting into uncharted territory. It's about as tight as my vice grips go, so. I can't really tell if that did anything or not. I think that motor shaft is doing more damage to my vice grips than it is the other way. Yeah, it's not doing much. I think I just need to try to get some more crazy glue on there. Out of ideas. How about squishing the gear? Well, if I try to do that, I think it's gonna end up messing up how it runs. I mean, the teeth on these things are pretty sensitive. Usually just applying a bit of CA works, so I'll have another go at that. Try cleaning the area, gluing it. I think that would clean up the lubricant. The good news is the glue that we tried to put before probably yanked off the lubricants and things like that. Have you ever been to the Canadian Royal Mint? I cannot say I have. Okay. Hopefully that's done it. Just put a bunch right over the top like so. I have like a lighter or something down here and I could kind of just speed up the drying process. Spare part gear. I don't know if I have any spares. I might have a barbecue lighter. Hold on a moment. Drill it out and make a shim for it. Well, I guess we'll just hope that does its job. It's kind of boring waiting for that to dry, so I don't know. Is there anything on the layout people would like to see in the meantime? So I'd like to give this at least a few minutes to set. Good idea. No problem. The Hershey factory. Yes, the Hershey factory. What's the favorite building of your layout? Probably Hershey's. I need to get some wires and things like that so I can make all of the piping, ducts, and things like that for the roof. Yeah, it will be interesting. Take it easy mode, he's married. What is with these comments? Beautiful, I haven't seen the factory in a while now, yeah. Sorry, but your room is a mess. You don't have to apologize about that. That's the truth. And it needs to be cleaned up. Sing the Midnight Special song. I don't think I've heard the Midnight Special. How's your cheap locomotive? Which one? David Z to G scale. Super duper job on the Hershey factory. Thank you, David. Why music stand? A music stand? What? Cheap CSX locomotive. It's still running fine. Actually, I have it right over here. Run it quickly. Hershey factory looks like you made a lot of progress. Well, luckily the most recent lot had some cars, so the parking lot is filling up, and I don't know. It's supposed to be rainy tomorrow, so I'm kind of thinking before I head off to work, maybe I'll come down here and do some work on it. I want to get it done. It's like so close. Walter's piping kit for the factory. That's a good idea. What do you do for work? I work at a local restaurant in the kitchen, putting together some good little sandwiches for everyone. How does it not have any ditch lights? Very, very uncommon thing for a cheap engine like this. Did you ever expand your layout? I don't think I will be expanding my layout anytime soon, with the exception of this, just because it's not my house. I'm already taking up a lot of space down here in the basement, which, you know, I got to give my parents credit for. It's very nice that they've been so accommodating of that, but I really do not want to push it. I've already taken up most of the basement down here. But I'm very happy with what I have, so that's okay. And what I need to do is move out. That way I can buy myself an old trailer, make that the train room. Then I can just build layers and layers and layers. SMT, you're married. Congratulate. I don't know why everybody's saying I'm married. I'm not. SMT's married. Well, that's still tacky, so yeah. SMT, I feel for you moving out, but crazy housing market in Canada sucks for our generation. That's the big problem right now. It's like, you know, trying to find property that's cheap. You know, especially for me, since pretty close to, like, you know, the nation's capital. Gatineau is still cheaper than Ottawa, so you got a lot of people moving in right now, and yeah, the prices of everything are just going through the roof. So yeah, you know, I want to move out. It's just that everything is bloody expensive. A model railroad trailer, Bubbles' dream, with the personal train of Patrick Swayze. Yes, the Swayze Express. Well, I think this whole drying process is taking a little too long, so we're just going to speed things along just a little bit here. I don't want to melt that gear, but applying a little bit of heat is probably not going to hurt that. Any tourist steam locomotives you can run? I mean, I've got the Wakefield train. Have you ever considered purchasing a Bachman Thomas? Yeah, I'm not sure. Night. SMT, what is your dream job? I'm not entirely sure, to be honest with all of you. I'd love to see it run. We'll run the Locomotive, why not? Is there any new channel memes? Not that I'm aware of, other than the fact that all these people keep saying that I'm apparently married now. Hey SMT, what is your Gmail? It is scrumptiousmodeltrains@gmail.com. It's, if you click on the About section of my channel, you can click something that says Contact, and then it will say View Email for business inquiries or whatever. Just click that. It will show you the email, and then you can send an email my way. What's your favorite train? Hiawatha. Married, 2 kids, and a dog with a cat. Married to your hobby. Yeah, that's it. Oh, there we go. David Z2G Scale just put the email in. SMT, isn't your birthday soon? I'd like to send a letter. It passed a few days ago. Grandpa said to me, yeah, I'm married. I love that. SMT, when and where is the next train show in the Ottawa area? I'm not aware of any upcoming ones. Yeah, probably next November. They'll probably do another OVA, our flea market. And at some point or another, I imagine the Elmer train show will return, or at least I hope it does. I sure missed that. Paul Burns, well, happy belated birthday, Mr. Harrison. Thank you. A few chatters asking for you to do a face reveal, Harrison. They must not be watching your videos. Well, I think the trains are probably nicer to watch, but hi everyone. Where's the cat? Well, he's upstairs, probably sleeping on my bed. Fortunately, it seems to be shedding season, because everywhere he goes, there's this huge circle of fur. Hey SMT, I would just like to let you know that I'm thankful for you making videos, because you were probably the largest inspiration for me getting into model railroading and the hobby, so thank you so much. Oh, thanks for sharing that. That really does mean a lot. Is Red Green still around? I think Red Green's still alive. I hope he is. That guy's the best. To use your phone as a camera. Yep. I had a KFC restaurant. Unfortunately, all my buildings melted in a garage fire in 2002. Sad, fused plastic clump. If the girls don't find you handsome, they should at least find you handy. And ever wiser words. Matt New Haven Model Railroad, Steve Smith, aka Red Green, is very much alive. He does a podcast. Well, there you have it, folks. Rush, rock on. Great band. This is taking too long to dry. I think we're just gonna see if it starts, and if it does, we'll just pack it away like this. And uh-oh. Well, that can't be good. Oh no, I know what just happened. I think the pivot gear, the pivot gear's pivot is broken right off. You see how loose that gear is? Oh, you've got to be kidding me. I tried to be so careful with this one, and yet this still happened. Well then, looks like all of that was a waste of time. We'll see. Hopefully the motor at least works, because we could probably steal parts off of this thing. Yep. Yeah, the motor's running fine, but I mean, this is just ridiculous. I can't believe after disassembling this and cleaning it out, like it was in perfect shape, and then for some reason putting it back together seemed to damage it. So yeah, at this point, like I don't even know what to say about this. Well, it's not unfixable. I've solved this problem before, but about 10:25 at night, so I think we'll probably finish the repairs off for this evening. So I guess we'll call this repair a fail. Part it out. I don't know. We'll get it going, or it will be the sacrificial locomotive to get something else going. It's not going to go to waste. Something good will happen either way, but unfortunately, it's the unexpected result. I didn't see that coming. I kind of thought we were just going to continue fighting with that, but well, I guess this story has a bit of a twist to it. That's okay. Anyway, I don't want to stop the live stream right away, though, so if there's any locomotives y'all want to see run, we'll run some of those, but yep, you done goofed, yep. SMT slips up. There's a lot of people that say, SMT, is there anything you can't fix? Well, here you have it. The midnight special has outdone me. When will you fix the GN RS3 locomotive? Oh yeah, some point in the future. Right now my priority is actually these two steam locomotives right here. At the same train show that I bought all those new locomotives, I picked up these two. They're not mine. They actually belong to one of the guys from my model railroading club. He apparently bought them real cheap, and the guy he bought them from said that they didn't work, which is why they're so cheap. So he asked me if I could try to have a look at them. So yeah, I think we'll try to get those going at some point in the future. So expect those soon, because I imagine he wants those engines back. They actually went missing for a few days down here, but I managed to find them, so that's all good. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what we're up against there. Red Green came to KS 2 years ago. Yeah, I guess it's got some traveling show. Gotta see if that ever comes close to Ottawa. I'd definitely go check it out. What model railroad club is that? I don't know. It's this little model railroad club that I joined. I don't even know if they have an official name, but yeah, I joined them last fall, and pretty good little club. Do you have any New Brunswick locomotives? I want to build a prototype from the 1950s. I don't think I do. The Gandy Dancer. All right. You've got it. The Victorian Railways B-Class locomotive. I'd love to run that, I just need to buy one. Make a video of your club. It might be a good idea to run some trains there since they have a pretty rockin' layout. Hi, Currandra. That's very strange. Try taking the Wakefield train off. It'd be weird if that was the source of the high current draw. I really hope something didn't burn out on that. Huh. Something on the layout is causing a short circuit. I wonder what that could be. Probably that. Oh boy. Alright, problem solved. So here you go, DB Tech. Here's the Bachmann Gandy Dancer. When will you do a fans meetup? I don't know. I haven't done one of those in a long time. I did a very small one in Florida. One person showed up. Still really cool, though. Too bad you couldn't put a loco behind them. It would be funny. Well, I can't put a locomotive, but I'll put this thing. And I was just thinking it'd be pretty funny to buy, like, I mean, I don't have the funds for this sort of things, but it would be really fun to buy like 40 of the Bachmann Gandy Dancers and just have like an armada of them going around the layout. Can you imagine? You just have like a whole bunch of them. That'd be hilarious. What are your opinions on Walters and Atlas? I like both brands. Walters, especially Walters kind of lower end stuff is pretty good value for the money in my opinion. This thing is just, of all the Bachmann products I bought, this thing right out of the box just hardly runs. With the little Gandy Dancer, which has less weight, runs like a million times better. Oh well, we're about to change the inconsistent running real quick. Oh crap. A high railer, yeah. You have 2 midnight specials. Yeah, I've got a working one. Mid-Nightmare special. That's what I should retitle the live stream, the Mid-Nightmare. Back to the Future Trolley Edition, pretty much. Run a double header. Well, technically this is a triple header. Bachmann maintenance of the way vehicles are stubborn. They need slight adjustment. How's the Hershey plant going? Not too bad. Still need to buy some wires, I think. Something to create all the ductwork on the roof. You're skipping me. I don't intentionally ignore anybody's comments. They're just organized a little bit. Not by me. Okay, and you run your CSX-9. Sure. You're married to Hershey's Smith Falls. Yes, that's it. Well, I think we'll run this around a couple times and then at that point probably call it a night. Repair vid turns into Leo runs. Yeah. I mean, I tried. Do you have a favorite train store in the Ottawa area? Not one particular favorite. Hobby House is pretty good. The Hobby Center's yeah, it's pretty good too. Larkspur isn't really in Ottawa, but Larkspur's great. Hey, you're not sticking around too long. Just wanted to know if you ever got any more O-Gauge stock up and running. I had that one I helped you with at Hudson a couple of years ago, so if you need any assistance, thanks a bunch. I remember that you were talking about the E-units. Yeah, I can't think of any O-scale stock I've got since then. I did get a new O-scale controller a few months ago, however. My buddy Liam had a spare, so yeah, I can't remember. I've repaired a few engines in exchange for this controller. And yeah, bought all my train buddies a pizza. That was the deal for this new controller, but what a deal. I mean, this controller is just fantastic, and this thing runs like a million times better. So the O-scale layout, or setup, I don't know what you want to call it, is still growing a little bit. Only got out to Larkspur once, great store. I love visiting Larkspur. The town it's into, Merrickville, is just gorgeous. It's really a fantastic place, because the thing is that there's all these like little boutiques and stuff. So, you know, if you want to spend a million hours in the train store and the missus is with you, you can kind of just send her off to all the boutiques and she can keep yourself entirely entertained for a long, long time, and you can just stay in the train store and go through boxes. It's the best setup ever. So it's not just the store that makes that place great. I've been going to Hobby House since 1980. They know me when they see me. Yeah, it's a good store. They were pretty much the ones who got me started in the hobby, because when I wanted to get into model trains, and my parents went there and they basically gave them all the advice on how to start a layout, because I was pretty young at the time. So yeah, very, very knowledgeable. Coffee stir straws may work for duct work. That's an interesting idea. I don't know. Maybe just a bunch of small straws. I'll just hit up the local dollar store and just look around, see what I can find, because, I mean, you know, you throw some paint on there and stuff, it will look fine, and, I don't know, I just need to get it done. It's so close. Is it bad I've bought so many trains that I've had people from around the country call me for advice or drive to me to sell me stuff? Well, you're definitely on another level, I think, at that point. Anyway, I think we'll finish things off for the night. Thank you all so much for joining in. I apologize for not being able to get this locomotive going again, but that's just the way she goes sometimes. But it was a fantastic time getting to chat with all you people, and yeah, it's still fun working on that locomotive despite the results. So I hope you all enjoyed. But anyways, I think we'll call it a night with that. Take her easy, folks.